The rebellion has failed. The ringleaders, once full of revolutionary fire, now shuffle forward with their wrists bound, all bravado evaporated. They've gambled everything on victory and are now contemplating their inevitable fate. As they reach the execution grounds, they scan for the familiar instruments of death, the gallows perhaps, or the firing squad they've been expecting. Instead, they find something unexpected. A battery of cannons, crews working with practiced precision, methodically loading gunpowder as if preparing for battle. Confusion turns to horror as the first prisoner is led not before the cannons, but directly to one. Extra coils of rope lie waiting. It's then that the terrible realization dawns. These men won't be shot by guns. They're about to be shot from them. Throughout history, governments have employed extreme forms of execution, both to punish crimes and to deter future ones. Some methods aimed for quick, ostensibly humane deaths. Others deliberately prolonged suffering, like being hanged, drawn, and quartered. But one method combined theatrical spectacle with instant obliteration in a way no other execution could match. Blowing from a gun is brutally simple in concept. Take your condemned prisoner, secure them to the muzzle of a loaded cannon, and fire. No complex machinery, no specialized training. Just a cannon, some rope, gunpowder, and a statement that would echo far beyond the execution grounds. This grim innovation likely originated with the Portuguese in the early 16th century, who used it to maintain control over their colonies in Africa and South America. But it was in the Mughal Empire, stretching across the Indian subcontinent from the 1500s until the 1850s, where the practice became infamous. Rebel leaders, insurrectionists, and political criminals were the primary targets, anyone who challenged imperial authority. Neighboring powers developed their own variations. The Kingdom of Mysore and Maratha Empire employed a particularly nightmarish alternative, tying the condemned to multiple artillery rockets before launch. The unfortunate victim would be simultaneously burned and dismembered, their body, as one witness described, mangled dreadfully as it spiraled through the air. When British influence expanded across India and Central Asia, they discovered a ready-made terror tactic. The East India Company, struggling to control vast territories with limited manpower, adopted the practice, particularly after the Sepoy rebellion. When mutinous soldiers who had worked for the company faced this explosive retribution, reports suggest the rebels responded in kind, subjecting captured British soldiers to the same fate. Nowhere embraced this method with more enthusiasm than Afghanistan. While other nations generally reserved cannon execution for military crimes, mutiny, espionage, sedition, Afghan rulers deployed it with broader application. Rebels faced the cannon certainly, but so did murderers, thieves, extortionists, and anyone who drew the ruler's eye. In a region where centralized control was tenuous at best, the spectacular nature of these executions sent an unmistakable message about the consequences of defiance. While the basic concept remained consistent across centuries and cultures, the exact procedure varied somewhat. Typically, the condemned would be bound to the cannon with their back pressed against the muzzle. Sometimes, stakes driven into the ground provided additional restraint. Most executions used a blank charge, just gunpowder, no projectile. Death came instantly from the explosive force directed against the victim's spine and internal organs. Occasionally, whether through error or inexperience, crews loaded the cannon with an actual cannonball or grape shot. This created additional hazards for the spectators, as lethal projectiles still followed their natural trajectory through the disintegrating body. In one documented incident, grape shot tore through a group of bystanders, causing injuries severe enough to require amputation. No specific cannon type was designated for executions. Records mention everything from light 6-pounders to massive 18-pound siege guns. Executioners simply used whatever artillery was available. There's no evidence of purpose-built execution cannons. The results were catastrophic for the human body. According to one eyewitness account, when the gun is fired, his head is seen to go straight up into the air some 40 or 50 feet. The arms fly off right and left, high up in the air, and all fall at perhaps 100 yards distance. The legs drop to the ground beneath the muzzle of the gun, and the body is literally blown away altogether, not a vestige being seen. Nature's cleanup crew arrived promptly at these grim spectacles. British observers noted vultures circling execution grounds, sometimes intercepting flesh before it hit the ground. Stray dogs gathered nearby, waiting to scavenge entrails and remains. Not every execution proceeded as planned. In one documented case, loose bindings allowed the condemned to slip partially free at the moment of firing. Gravely wounded but still alive, the man had to be finished off with a rifle, an inglorious end to what was designed to be an awesome display of power. Beyond the obvious goals of eliminating enemies of state, cannon execution served multiple purposes. The primary aim was deterrence through spectacle. Few punishments could match its psychological impact on witnesses. The message was unmistakable. Challenge authority and be erased from existence in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. In regions where this punishment was most common, India and Central Asia, there was also a spiritual dimension. local religions placed tremendous importance on proper burial rituals. By literally scattering the condemned to the winds, canon execution denied victims the dignity of intact remains and proper funeral rites, extending punishment beyond death itself. Blowing from a gun gradually fell out of favor in British-controlled territories during the late 1800s, as imperial administrators embraced more civilized methods of capital punishment. However, the practice persisted longer in Persia and Afghanistan, where traditional execution methods continued well into the 20th century. The last documented cases occurred in Kabul in 1930, when 11 rebels were executed by cannon, seemingly closing the book on this particularly explosive chapter in execution history, or so it seemed. In 2017, reports emerged claiming North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un had executed 11 musicians by strapping them to the business ends of anti-aircraft guns. The same year, 5 government officials allegedly met similar fates, while in 2015, Defense Minister Hyeon Chol was reportedly executed in the same manner. Technically, these executions differ from historical cannon punishment. The victims weren't tied directly to gun barrels, making these more akin to extraordinarily overpowered firing squads than true blowing from a gun. These accounts, coming primarily from defectors, should be treated with caution. North Korea's isolation makes independent verification impossible. The reports may be exaggerated or entirely fabricated, but if true, they represent a modern, possibly even more devastating revival of one of history's most theatrical methods of execution. From Portuguese colonies to the Mughal Empire, from British India to Afghanistan, blowing from a gun served as the ultimate expression of state power, a punishment designed not just to kill the body, but to obliterate it entirely. For over 4 centuries, the roar of the execution cannon sent an unmistakable message: challenge authority and be erased from existence itself. Today, we look back on such practices as barbaric relics of a less enlightened age, while hoping that reports of their modern revival remain nothing more than unverified rumors. We upload all the videos that we have to censor from YouTube to our Patreon. Right now, you can watch uncensored videos on the Battle of Canny, medieval warfare, and the Sherman tank, all on Patreon. History is epic. Watch it uncensored.